I remember back in my 40s, I believed all vegetables were good for me. I filled my plate with everything from raw sprouts to fried eggplant, thinking more was always better. Over time, I learned that not all produce is harmless, especially as we grow older and our bodies become more particular. These days, I pay closer attention to which foods help me feel well and which ones leave me uneasy. In my 60s, I started noticing how different foods triggered certain reactions, from sharp aches in my joints to mild but persistent stomach issues. My friends noticed similar things. Some found that what they'd eaten for years now troubled them. That's when I realized that certain vegetables might pose a real risk to seniors. They're not always obvious culprits. So I want to share the top 10 that I believe we should think twice about. Before we get further, I'd like to know where you're joining us from, and if you get any value from these videos, a like and subscribe would mean a lot to me. Our community of thoughtful listeners is growing, and it's a comfort to know we can lean on each other for guidance and shared experiences. This list isn't meant to scare you. We're all different, so some seniors might handle these items without trouble, but these vegetables stand out as problematic for many older folks I know, myself included. If you're concerned, it's always best to consult a healthcare provider. I'm simply a 75-year-old sharing what I've seen in my life and in the lives of those around me. At this age, I don't want unnecessary trouble from something as basic as vegetables, so it's worth being aware. Let's walk through these 10 carefully. I'll explain why they might be troublesome, offer a few personal stories, and give you enough insight to decide for yourself. Knowledge can help us maintain a healthier, more peaceful life. Let's begin. When I was about 50, I recall discovering a new sandwich shop that piled sprouts high on every wrap. I thought they were the perfect touch, fresh, crunchy, and seemingly wholesome. Then I learned a friend fell seriously ill after eating raw sprouts. She had terrible cramps and fever, and doctors traced it to bacterial contamination. Raw sprouts grow in damp, warm conditions, ideal for bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella. As seniors, our immune systems aren't as sturdy, and we might face a more severe outcome. Washing raw sprouts doesn't guarantee safety. The bacteria can hide within the seeds as they sprout. My neighbor, who is also in her 70s, ate raw sprouts a couple of times a month. One day, she experienced a severe stomach upset that lasted 2 days. Ever since, she's avoided them completely. For some folks, lightly cooking sprouts can reduce the risk, but that changes their texture. Now, I opt for lettuce, cucumbers, or shredded carrots to add crunch. I'd rather be safe than risk a serious infection. Prevention is key when we've lived long enough to see how quickly a small thing can become a big problem. Eggplant used to be a treat for me. I loved eggplant parmesan with gooey cheese on top. The problem showed up in my late 50s, when I began to experience intense acid reflux. I tried everything, smaller portions, antacids, you name it. Eventually, I realized eggplant, part of the nightshade family, might be a culprit. Some seniors find that nightshades aggravate inflammation or digestive troubles. A cousin of mine, who has reflux, confirmed eggplant set off her symptoms too. Another issue is that eggplant soaks up oil when fried, which can lead to extra calories and more strain on digestion. While I enjoyed that taste in my younger days, I see now how greasy foods can trigger heartburn. If you suspect eggplant is causing discomfort, you might try a break from it. That's what I did, and the heartburn diminished. It's about listening to your body. Tomatoes are at the heart of so many sauces and stews. I relied on canned tomatoes for my pasta sauce when I was raising a family. It was a cheap, convenient shortcut. But later on, when I started monitoring my blood pressure, I realized how much sodium lurks in those cans. Too much sodium can raise blood pressure, which is already a common concern for seniors. The acidity in tomatoes can also trigger reflux, something that caught up with me in my 60s. After a big plate of spaghetti with canned tomato sauce, I'd feel a burning sensation in my chest. It took me a while to connect the dots, but once I switched to homemade sauces using fresh tomatoes, that burning decreased. I also worried about the chemicals in the lining of some cans. Certain brands claim to use safer linings, but I'd rather not take the chance if fresh tomatoes are an option. Even frozen tomatoes can be an improvement over heavily processed canned versions. A good friend shared how her ankles would swell up after sodium-heavy meals. She loved a quick tomato-based soup from a can. After she cut back, her swelling eased, and her blood pressure readings improved. It's remarkable how small changes can make a big difference for us older folks. So if you face hypertension or acid reflux, it might be worth looking at how often you rely on canned tomatoes. A little fresh sauce can be tastier and kinder to your system. I grew up enjoying a bit of spice here and there, but I never went overboard. Then, sometime in my early 70s, I attended a local festival where they had all sorts of chili peppers to sample. I tried some varieties that were much hotter than anything I'd eaten before. The immediate mouth burn was one thing, but later that night I had terrible stomach cramps and couldn't sleep. I felt like my insides were on fire. Hot peppers can be especially rough on seniors because we may already struggle with acid reflux, gastritis, or other digestive sensitivities. A friend who adores spicy foods told me she had to scale back drastically after she turned 70, or else she'd be glued to the bathroom with an upset stomach. Another neighbor reported that extremely spicy peppers made her heart race. Her doctor wasn't surprised. Spicy foods can sometimes affect heart rate and blood pressure. I still enjoy a mild kick from time to time. A dash of mild chili powder in my soup is fine, but I avoid anything too fiery. Some folks can handle spiciness at any age, but if you find yourself dealing with acid reflux, heartburn, palpitations, or even hemorrhoid flare-ups, hot peppers might be the trigger. Pay attention to your body. Life is easier when your meals don't fight you afterward. I was introduced to okra in my 40s when I moved to a region where gumbo was popular. The texture was new to me, and I learned that many people don't like it because of its slimminess. Still, I gave it a try, hoping I'd come to enjoy it. But over the years I noticed it caused me bloating and gas, and I never really got used to that slick feel. Okra contains fructans, which can be hard for some people's digestive systems to handle, especially seniors. A good friend tried to push through her discomfort because she read okra was high in fiber. She believed it was a healthy choice for her. But after weeks of painful cramps, she visited her doctor, who suggested reducing foods that triggered her symptoms. Okra topped that list. Once she cut it out, her digestive woes improved almost immediately. That was proof enough for both of us that this vegetable can be a real challenge to seniors with sensitive tummies. Even frying okra, which some people claim cuts down the slimminess, didn't solve my issues. Plus, fried foods aren't the best choice anyway. If you enjoy okra and you don't have any problems, that's wonderful. But if you're often feeling bloated or noticing discomfort after meals, consider whether okra might be the culprit. There are plenty of other ways to get fiber and nutrients without the gastrointestinal gamble. For a long time, I never thought of potatoes as anything but harmless comfort food. Mashed potatoes, French fries, baked potatoes loaded with butter, those were staples I grew up with. But then I learned about the impact on blood sugar. Potatoes are starchy and can cause a spike in glucose levels, which matters if you have diabetes or if you're trying to keep your weight in check. In my 60s, my doctor noted my blood sugar was creeping up, and he suggested cutting back on certain carbs, including white potatoes. Another detail that caught my attention: potatoes are also part of the nightshade family. Some seniors say their joint pain gets worse when they eat nightshades. Whether that's universally true or not, it doesn't hurt to pay attention if you have chronic aches or arthritis. Maybe potatoes aren't the problem for you, but if you notice a pattern, it's worth a second look. I still enjoy the occasional baked potato, but I'm careful about the toppings. Gone are the days when I'd pile on cheese, sour cream, and bacon bits. Now, I'll have a small potato with a modest pat of butter or a bit of olive oil. If I crave fries, I'll sometimes bake wedges at home, lightly seasoned, so I can control the oil and salt. Small changes can help, and I feel steadier overall when I don't overload on starches. Corn is a popular choice, especially at summer picnics. I remember the smell of corn on the cob grilling at family gatherings. We'd slather it in butter, sprinkle on some salt, and go to town. But as I got older, I realized corn was giving me more trouble than enjoyment. It's high in carbs, so it can affect blood sugar levels. Plus, corn isn't exactly packed with the same nutrients you'd get from leafy greens. My neighbor, who has diverticulitis, mentioned that her doctor told her to be very cautious with corn because undigested kernels could irritate her digestive tract. Even if you don't have diverticulitis, you might find that corn leaves you feeling bloated or gassy. On top of that, many corn products, like chips and tortillas, are often heavily processed and loaded with salt or oil. I still have fond memories of corn on the cob, but I don't make it a regular part of my diet anymore. If I do have it, I keep the portion small and go light on the butter. We seniors often have to be mindful of cholesterol and weight, so skipping a bowl of creamed corn might be one of the simpler ways to stay on track. It's all about balance and tuning into how our bodies react. Cabbage sounds innocent enough. It's high in vitamins, fiber, and can be used in everything from soups to slaws. Yet it's famously gassy, and that can pose a real issue as we age. Our digestion isn't as efficient, and something like cabbage can lead to uncomfortable bloating. Years ago, I tried the cabbage soup diet, a quick fix plan that promised weight loss. It worked in the sense that I ate fewer calories, but the constant gas and stomach pains weren't worth it. A friend of mine who has IBS said cabbage was practically off limits because it triggered episodes of severe cramping. Even coleslaw at a barbecue would have her doubled over the next morning. Another consideration is sodium. Pickled cabbage or sauerkraut may be easier to digest for some, but it can also be high in salt. That's a concern if you have hypertension, which many seniors do. The older I get, the more I value comfort. I don't want to eat something that leaves me feeling bloated and miserable. So, while I appreciate cabbage's nutritional benefits, I only have it in very small portions. If I want that crunch, I might opt for lettuce or another leafy green that's gentler on my stomach. The key is to experiment and find what truly sits well with you. Kale is often hailed as a superfood, and in many ways it's loaded with good nutrients. But it can be a problem for those on blood-thinning medications, thanks to its high vitamin K content. I have a dear friend who was told to watch her kale intake after her doctor saw irregularities in her blood tests. She was making green smoothies daily, unaware that all that vitamin K could alter how her medicine worked. Kale can also be tough on digestion. When it's raw, it's fibrous and can cause bloating or gas. Some folks do better with kale if it's cooked or blended, but there are no guarantees. I tried kale chips, hoping for a healthy snack alternative, but I never quite enjoyed the texture. Then I noticed some mild stomach upset, which was my signal to back off. At 75, I want my food routine to be as uncomplicated as possible, and kale just became another chore. Some folks thrive on it, but if you're not one of them, don't force it. If you love kale and aren't on any medication that conflicts, more power to you. But if you take blood thinners or find kale makes you feel bloated, I'd recommend trying milder greens like spinach, arugula, or romaine. Sometimes the hype around a superfood can overshadow the practical realities of how it interacts with our individual bodies. Spinach is considered a powerhouse, packed with iron, vitamins, and minerals. I loved adding it to omelets and salads, but then I experienced kidney stones in my early 60s. My doctor asked about my diet and explained that spinach contains oxalates, which can promote stone formation in people prone to them. That revelation made me cautious about my spinach intake. Spinach is also high in vitamin K, so if you're on blood thinners, you might need to track it carefully. A cousin of mine was told to ease up on spinach after her lab work showed some unusual results. As much as I enjoy a hearty spinach salad, I don't want to revisit the pain of kidney stones. Cooking spinach can reduce its oxalate content slightly, but it's still something to discuss with a healthcare professional if you have any concerns. Does this mean nobody should eat spinach? Not necessarily. But if you have a history of kidney stones, or if you're on medications that interact with vitamin K, you should be careful about how much spinach you eat. Sometimes, cooking can help, but it may not be enough for certain individuals. After my stone episode, I sought out other leafy greens with fewer oxalates. It's all about being mindful of how your body responds. Sharing these 10 vegetables is my way of saying, pay attention to what your body's telling you. We seniors have unique challenges: weaker immune systems, slower digestion, potential medication interactions, and an increased likelihood of chronic conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes. The goal isn't to demonize every food item in sight. It's to recognize that even seemingly healthy choices can have downsides. I often tell my friends, don't assume that what worked for you at 30 will still work at 70. Our bodies change, and that includes how we process food. A neighbor of mine used to eat raw vegetables all day long without a second thought. Now, in her late 70s, she finds that certain raw veggies cause terrible gas or heartburn. She had to adapt her diet, focusing on easier-to-digest cooked vegetables. That's not a failure, it's a practical response to aging. We also have to factor in medication conflicts. Several of the vegetables on this list, like kale and spinach, can affect blood-thinning drugs due to their vitamin K content. Others, like hot peppers, can disturb your heart rate or exacerbate conditions like acid reflux. Even if you're not on medication, you might notice new pains or problems after eating a specific item. Paying attention to patterns can help you feel more in control. It might be as simple as reducing portion sizes or cooking a vegetable differently, or it could mean cutting it out completely. Don't let yourself feel guilty if you decide to avoid a vegetable that's touted as healthy. Real health is about what works for your body now, not what the magazines say. Try not to be swayed by every new trend. I've lived long enough to see dozens of miracle foods come and go. What matters is how you feel and what your doctor advises. I hope this conversation has helped shine a light on why certain vegetables might be worth avoiding or limiting for seniors. We're all trying to stay as healthy and comfortable as possible in our later years, and it can be frustrating when foods we once loved start giving us trouble. The upside is that there are still plenty of nutrient-rich options out there, and with a bit of trial and error, you can find a balance that fits your needs. Remember, the point isn't to ditch every vegetable out of fear. It's to be aware that our bodies change and we have to adapt. If you suspect one of these 10 is causing problems, try removing it for a while or preparing it differently. Keep a simple food journal if that helps track any changes in your energy, digestion, or pain levels. And if you've got concerns about medication interactions or chronic conditions, Always talk to someone who understands your full health picture. Thanks for taking the time to listen. If you found value in this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Thank you truly. May your meals bring you nourishment and peace. And may you enjoy each day with a little less worry about what's on your plate.